a two-bit expose of the same old story that I heard yesterday. Yeah, it goes the headlines, man. They all just go to plan. Their brains are fixed and breaking. You know they're all just spam. So buckle down, look right in. It crawls its way under your skin. Just come by from the things they spout. And you should give me that good news. Because I'm tired of the same old shit.
Oh, yes. Good morning. Here we are. 21.6 The Net. The Grounds, Giles and Jones, the most unique show on 21.6. Uncle Pete right up there is saying, hey, if you put that link into your URL, come on board and you can be part of the show live as we are killing it. Of course, The Grounds with Giles and Jones brought to you through the financial support of our good friends at, I don't know, let's say Cannabis CBD. How about that? Cannabis, you'll see it up here. Scott's not here. He knows all the numbers and everything, but I don't know, Cannabis CBD shop right here down on Front Street in McHenry. This over here to my left, your right, depending on how you're looking at the screen, is not Giles. This is Mathius Carter. Mathius, good morning, man.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. Mathius Carter is author extraordinaire, vet, and a gentleman who has PTSD, and father, all around good guy, and has done some things for the world to for people with PTSD.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm an outreach coordinator for Road Home Program, which is a nonprofit through Rush University Medical Center. So we help veterans and their families with the invisible wounds of war. So PTSD, anxiety, depression, and military sexual trauma. And we do it at no cost to the veteran or their family member. And it's amazing exactly what they do. We'll fly them out from anywhere in the country to Chicago for a 2-week intensive program, which is basically 6 months to a year's worth of therapy in 2 weeks. And we do it for awesome. Any veteran, any discharge status, and any era.
Nice. And we're just throwing, that is the, that's the Road Home website right there that we're showing up there. It's a little bit small for us, but people can see that there. All right. I can still read the screen up there. We moved screens. We did some things. So I got to use my old eyes. But the Road Home program is amazing. And any veteran in the world.
Right. In the world, we've even helped veterans that are expats. So expatriates that live in Mexico and Germany. We've flown them out to Chicago for this program. And then if you live in Illinois, we even have outpatient programs for veterans and their family members. Even when I do these functions at different events, you'll talk to a veteran, especially some older veterans that PTSD wasn't around when they got out. They call it shell shock. Yeah. And so they'll say, oh, I don't have PTSD. It wasn't around when I was younger. And then their family members are shaking their head like they do have PTSD. And then we're able to help the family members, even if the veteran or service member isn't ready to get help yet, which is amazing.
So you're an old guy. I mean, you're in your 60s, 70s, right? Why is there such a, I mean, I've never been a soldier, right? My son's active right now in the Navy, so I guess a sailor, right? But I've never been a badass enough to be a soldier, right? So why is there such a stigma? Is it because you're tough? You're like, I don't have PTSD.
Right. I think men in general have a hard time going to the doctor when they're supposed to and things like that. Mm-hmm. They're normally pushed by someone else, especially someone they love. But for military, I think it's just being humble and acknowledging that you have an issue. I think it's less of a stigma now than it was a long time ago, and that's because of the Vietnam vets that have come before us and people really advocated for that mental health component. So, the vet centers and different things like that, or organizations like us, that came into play with the Warrior Care Network and things like that. They did that because they saw the need when people were coming back from the Middle East.
Wow. Yeah, it's cool. Now, you and I had the opportunity to talk, and last week, and as we were kind of prepping for the show, and I asked, because I'm not that guy, and I'm one of the guys who's like, get over it, right? It's the 4th of July. So we talked a lot about fireworks, right? And I was amazed because I've never asked anybody. I've known a lot of people who have seen combat and been in combat, but I never asked them. And I'm like, well, you wrote this incredible book for your son, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I asked, is the 4th of July really that bad for y'all?
In the beginning, especially right when I got back, the 4th of July was pretty tough. I didn't know I was making all the correct steps in order to try to get over it.
Right.
So they call it exposure therapy. I didn't know what it was. I just figured I wanted to be in a place when I had children to go with them to fireworks and enjoy it, because I enjoyed it when I was younger. Now, after going through CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and realizing that the danger isn't there, especially here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. But seeing the colors now I'm okay with. The white flash booms were ones that affected me, and they still do. But I'm working on it.
Right.
But they were the reason for the book, was the white flash ones that I just, for some reason, my brain can't get past the white flash ones. The colors, I'm like, oh, it's pretty. I can understand it. But the white flash ones, I don't understand why anybody likes those.
Dogs don't. I mean, animals don't like those. I don't understand. I was talking with Jamie. She runs the United Way, which we'll get to that in a second. They've got a cool party going on the 29th. It's going to be cool. Good fundraiser. Jamie Maravich. And we kind of said the same thing. Like, nobody likes those. And literally, we went, and they love them. I don't know if it's just they're cheap, but dogs, animals, old people, young people. I mean, it scares babies.
Yeah.
I don't know when, I don't understand it, but obviously that stuff. And the reason is your training, right? And I didn't know this. You had told me there's like a perimeter that they
like trip flares.
Yeah, trip flares, you call them.
Yeah. So I think that's what I was talking to my therapist about a little bit. Is I think the reason why I probably don't like the white flashes is because it reminds me of when the trip flares would go off and you would have to close your eye. So when those go off, I catch myself kind of ducking and closing my eye, like you're getting ready to shoot. So I don't know if it's just something ingrained. Hopefully I can get past that, but yeah, that's what ended up causing me to have a real bad panic attack at the Chicago Wolves game for Military Appreciation Night, which blew me away. That for Military Appreciation Night, where we saw hundreds of veterans, that they had so many fireworks, I couldn't have been the only one that was freaking out.
Right? No way. No, there's absolutely no way. Right?
Right.
It's so crazy, but yet we do it. I mean, we don't. If you don't have a illness, if you don't have a trauma, if you don't have anything like that, absolutely you don't understand, right?
Sure.
And our good American attitude goes, yeah, you know what? Get over it, right? Suck it up, be a man, rub a little dirt on there, get back in there.
For sure.
And it's crazy that we do that instead of trying to seek to understand. Like, hey man, why is that bother you?
That was actually a huge. It was nice to see that. I actually had a friend that went to high school with me that bought this. He doesn't have any kids, and he made a comment on the Amazon, left a review saying that he read it just to better understand his friends that he knew that went to war and things like that, and he didn't know that. This is how they felt. He just figured, they were messed up or whatever. Right.
Get over it, guys.
So, I mean, it's definitely an eye opener, I think, for people that don't have kids or for people that do have kids.
Yeah. And what you're referring to, and let me see, let me change camera angles here, and we'll pull into that book. But you wrote a book for your son. And your son's how old?
So my son is going to be 5 on Sunday.
Hey, happy birthday.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited. Yeah.
And so, because you love your son with every ounce here, I'll throw it up closer.
Thanks.
Because you love your son with every ounce of your being, you're like, I gotta try to help you understand this. And the amazing thing is, you said this when he was a child. I mean, a young kid. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I'll wait till you get into your teens and we'll talk about it. Right.
I figured the best. Well, I actually didn't come up with the idea. My therapist told me I needed to figure out a way. So basically, what ended up happening, I went to the Chicago Wolves game for. We set up tables and we hand out information for
Yeah.
veterans and service members to get just to know the resources that are out there that we help with for
Yeah.
PTSD, anxiety, depression, and everything. We hand out brochures and T-shirts and things like that, and we try to make it fun. We have a spin wheel, things like that. So somebody came up to me and my son was on my shoulders. He loves to ride on my shoulders. And the person that worked at the Chicago Wolves Stadium was like, you need to go see the opening number. It's amazing. So I brought him inside and pyrotechnics are going off. It was really pretty. They did a good job. And then the fireworks start and it was the white flash booms. And the first time it went off, I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. And I went to turn around with my son and he was like, no, Daddy, I want to watch it. So I'm a dad first, so I did it for him. So I braced myself against the wall and just sat there and took it. And every time I opened my eyes, there was another one. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it felt like 15 or 20
Right.
of those. And it floored me that they did that on a military appreciation night. But I walked back in the vestibule and my boss, which she did 3 tours herself and she's a badass. And she saw that I was visibly upset. And she came over and she played the mom role and started talking to my son and getting his attention away from me. And someone else got me some water. And, I'm not used to that. I've been getting help since 2007. So this was like the worst panic attack I had in 15, 20 years. And so, so I told my therapist the next day, I was like, I'm just glad my son didn't see me lose my composure. I said it in different words, but basically that. And he made a face. He was like, And I said, what? And he's like, we'll talk about it next time. I was like, I feel like we need to talk about it now, especially making a face like that. Yeah. And he was like, you need to find an age appropriate way to explain what you're going through to your son. And in my head, I'm like, how are you going to explain to a 4-year-old watching someone burn to death?
Right.
How are you going to explain like fear, panic attacks, hypervigilance, like basically everything that entails with PTSD? How are you just explain that and water it down to a 4-year-old? At the time, I think he was 3, maybe 4. But yeah, so I thought about it and I reached out to a friend that also was in Iraq with me at the same time. I didn't know we were in the same Third ID, and I was attached to Third ID. He was with Third ID, and we were in Iraq at the same time of the initial invasion. And so I reached out to him and said, I know you haven't done this kind of stuff before, but would you be interested? And he's got 5 kids himself, so that probably causes PTSD.
Sure.
But yeah, I told him about it.
I have 4, and yes, it does.
Yeah. And so I told him about it, and he jumped on board. So we started working on it. And it was great, and he helped me water it down from, watching someone burn to death to maybe having a Humvee on fire or something like that.
Yeah.
He helped me water it down and kind of keep me, I feel like, in an age appropriate space.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he was pivotal for this.
So just sharing it up there, you can go to Amazon and pick up the book. Its title is "Instead of Sheep: A Soldier's Way of Explaining PTSD to His Son." Really, really cool book. Drew, good morning. Glad to have you with us, brother. Join us if you can. Just copy that link that Uncle Pete has up there and jump on. So it's an incredible book. I mean, it is absolutely font is like 40, right? So even if you have bad eyes like me, you can read it to somebody. But here's what shocks me. Why did it take this long to create a child's book? And now this book is being included in the Wounded Warrior packages, everything, right? I mean,
so my executive director is definitely behind me with this venture, and I have clinical support from Road Home program, and so my executive director is sending it out to the other academic medical centers to see if they're interested, and I'm sending them out to the Warrior Care Network and Wounded Warrior Project and things like that, because I feel like it is necessary to get this out to as many parents as possible. I mean, I have, when I started doing this kind of stuff, I did it just for my son. I wanted him to have something that helped him understand, and then also that showed that I loved him, and then I'm working on myself. But when I saw, my friend Nick, the illustrator, also said that we need to get this out as much as possible to everybody. And having the comments come back from my brothers and sisters in arms that have shared this with their kids, and they basically told me that they wanted to talk to their kids about this, but they just couldn't figure out a way, and this helped to open up the communication. That makes me feel so good. It's definitely a hard thing to start talking about, and our clinical support is fantastic. I'm going to make another one. I'm working on it right now, and I'm working with my adjutant from the VFW, which I'm the commander of the VFW in Crystal Lake, and she has PTSD. She's retired from the Navy, and we're going to make one with a mother and a daughter. So that we incorporate everybody, because my sisters in arms are going through the same as we are.
Sure.
And I think they're forgotten sometimes.
And out there, folks, on our YouTube and maybe on the Facebook, we've got the link for the book. Now here's, I mean, you've got it because of your background, so it's military driven, which is cool. But PTSD is not. What is it defined as? You told me last week what it was defined as.
It was an eye-opener when it was explained to me that PTSD is a normal response to an abnormal situation.
Normal response to an abnormal situation.
It makes a lot of sense, because your body wants to react in a way that makes sense, and it made sense at the time when you were going through it,
right?
But now it just doesn't make sense for where you're at, and you have those feelings. And I tried to explain that to someone in the past. I was like, I know that box in the alley is not an IED, but my body doesn't, like, feel my pulse, and my heart was racing. But going through years of therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy at the time, they have you work on what's the likelihood that is a bomb. And it's like 0.000%. They have you write out a number, and it's like, it's probably less than that, right? And I was like, the likelihood that that's danger is very, very low. But it doesn't matter inside. It doesn't matter, because you still react the same way, even though your brain's telling you that that's not right. And that's the problem. PTSD never goes away. You just learn how to deal with it. You learn coping mechanisms and things like that.
Whether it's an auto accident, whether it's I growing up, one of my good friends and basketball teammates was T-boned by a train. Right, he thought that it was clear on his driver door, and here we are, 40 years later, and if I were to talk to him, he still has, I triple, quadruple check. Drew, I've talked with Drew. Same thing. He was in an accident, and now that left turn is like, whoa. I was in a hostile takeover, bank robbery.
I was about to say banking that happens a lot, for sure.
PTSD. And still to this day, if I see somebody come in with their hood up in the bank lobby, my heart rate elevates. You get a little sweaty. You're like, oh man. Or if there's if people are just being goofy, they laugh loud in a bank lobby, and I still work at a bank. you brace, because of that. My kids were small. I didn't even have one of them, but for the longest time, I didn't even want them to point a water gun at anybody.
Yeah.
Because I, from point blank range, had a hand cannon pointed at me, and just if they squirted me with the water gun, I'd get, don't ever point it, what are you doing? And so then I had to work through that. It's nothing compared to what soldiers have, but that's PTSD.
The banking industry is kind of funny too, because when I got out, I didn't know I had PTSD, and I kind of just went into areas that allowed me to have my symptoms, and it seemed normal.
Mhm.
For example, I worked at a bank, so hypervigilance, where you're always looking around, you have to know who's in the building,
Yeah.
you have to know where the exits are. As soon as someone walked in, I would be up and over there, asking them how they're doing, because I knew that the likelihood that somebody wants to rob a bank, if they know that they're going to get attention immediately as soon as they walk in, is a lot less.
Yeah.
But also because it made me look like I was fantastic at sales, because I was always talking to people, I was always moving around, and it was because of the hypervigilance. I needed to know, oh, somebody's coming over there, and then they caught my eye,
Yeah.
and so I could hide my hypervigilance, and it was different.
So in restaurants and whatnot, do you still get the gunfighter's position?
So yeah, I mean, I've been working on it for a long time, so I've had a lot of therapy. Yes, I used to like to have my back to things and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and but yeah, I had a SGB shot. I had the stellar
Yeah.
ganglioblock shot. So that's 2 shots in your vagus nerve that goes to your amygdala. That is that fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And so they gave me the anesthesia in the vein, and that was the first time I felt calm in 15 years. Take a Vet Fishing paid for me to get my stellar ganglioblock shot, which is like $1,500 to $3,000. This is done in by Stella. So
Yeah.
the Dr.
That's
Lipov is a Russian that figured out that that used to be used for pain helps with PTSD. Actually, with what you were talking about with the sweaty palms, he was helping someone with pain, and then found out that this person had severe anxiety and they had sweaty palms. And then when that was cleared up after the shot, he started doing like research into how it could help PTSD and things like that.
There's a book Chuck Inman wrote called Brain, I think it's Brain Freeze or something like that, and he talks about that vagus nerve and how everything hits that fight or flight, the amygdala. If Coach was here, he'd tell you all about it. And it's what Chuck says is you got to ask yourself a question at that point to get yourself out of that fight. What and not necessarily why do I feel this, is I wonder what the temperature is. You gotta try to work with your brain to get it off of why it's wanting you to fight or flight. A good book. Chuck Inman is the author of that. But speaking of books, right up there, listen, Mathius is doing great work, and he's helping. And you want to talk about changing people's lives? Go out and order the book. Right there, click that link. Everybody out there listening knows somebody, whether it's through church, through work, or whatever, who has been at war. I mean, we've been at war for so long that, I mean, if I were just to look at you, I'd be like, man, here's a guy who's got his shit together. He's a good looking young guy, and I wouldn't think twice, right? But we probably work with somebody. We know somebody at church, whatever. But help him out, man. Go buy this book. It's an easy read. It's a great book. Even if you buy it and leave it at your dentist office, I mean, it's $14, I think, right, on Amazon.
$14.99.
So you go out to Amazon, and it's Instead of Sheep: A Soldier's Way of Explaining PTSD to His Son. There's going to be somebody who may pick that up and read it and go, oh my gosh, that's great. And I needed that, or I know somebody who does. But here's an incredible author who served our country here. It gives us the the ability to go to work, to do things, to listen to 21.6 the net. So help them out, which is awesome.
So when I wrote this, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, and I was looking at books out there that could possibly help me explain this to my son. But the one that I read was really just talking about how a father, my dad was mad because I didn't finish my food. My dad was mad because I didn't do this, or my daddy yelled at me because of this. Yeah. I don't yell at my child. So it's, I have different things, I get sad, I get vacant, I go internal, things like that. So, and then I think the most important part that I think the other book that I read lacked was the talking about like the symptoms of PTSD, not just, my dad's a dick and the reason is because he has PTSD. This talks about the different symptoms and kind of what the dad looks at or how when he hears fireworks, what he sees versus what the kid sees. And then also it has that component that says that it's important to get help, that it's not your fault, that I love you, that even if I'm mad, I still love you. And then also, ask me questions. Like, I don't know if I'm different than others, but I mean, I would answer any question that he had, age appropriate as much as I could, and I would love to, that's what I want to do, is water this down less the older I age up the characters. And maybe there will be one day where I write a book about everything I've gone through to help explain everything to him. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Just don't leave it locked in a closet. Never mind. So with what you're doing and how you're doing it, how's it helped you? How's it helped your relationships?
This makes my day. I mean, every day, every couple of days, I'm getting a message talking about how this has helped open up communications, things like that. I'm very open with my son, especially after this. I think it's helped kind of explain things to him. I try to read this to him often. And the funny thing, and I'll try not to cry. The funny thing is that he says, "Daddy, I like the book a lot, but it's sad." And I was like, this is my life.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And at his age, that's what he incorporates to, right? As he grows, here's the cool thing. He'll be like, my dad's the coolest fucking dad in the world because he did this for me. And now I'm starting. I mean, this is a book that's going to grow with him, and he'll start to, as his brain starts to mature and understand, and he'll be like, my dad's the biggest hero in the world. This is amazing that he did this. That
reminds me of this one page. This is my favorite part. It's the saddest for me, but it says sometimes Daddy doesn't see himself the way you do. Daddy might not feel good about the things that he's been through, and it shows the dad as a war-torn veteran looking at himself, and that's how he sees himself. But then his son sees him as a superhero, and I know that can relate to everybody because we're all just, nobody knows what they're doing. You're just trying to raise the best kids you can. But so I mean, I know a lot of people can relate to that, but especially veterans, service members, and things like that. You just, you're just hoping you're not messing your kids up. You know?
Well, I mean, you're not. You're doing the absolute best thing, and I'll tell you that there. I have a close friend who, through a series of bad decisions, now is doing 10 years in prison, right? And my daughter, Ashley, who is 26, she's a clinical psychologist, right? And she deals with kids. And we've had some hard conversations because she's like, I don't understand why you keep backing this guy, right? And it came to the point where she said, you're my hero, Dad. See, I'm gonna get choked up now too. And she's 26, bro. So I'm like, you're my hero, and this takes a little bit of your cape away from me that you want to, that you keep in contact with this guy who made a series of bad decisions. And she, you know what I'm saying? So at 26, I'm like, oh my God. You know what I mean? So these things still get you because they're your kids,
Yeah.
right? And she's going to be getting married, this year, and she's brilliant. She's brilliant at what she does, and she works with preteens and teens. And I'm proud of her. But for her to say that still, it's like, oh, that's kind of, so it kind of keeps going on. But then you think, well, this is cool. That means I did the right thing raising this kid.
Oh yeah.
Right. And what it's tough, right? But he's 5. And what he's going to remember is my dad wrote a book, and we were, riding bikes and skateboards, and, he was there. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And he's still my hero. And as that comprehension comes to understand what you did for him, he'll be like, that's amazing. Your cape will get longer. Right.
And I made sure that I'm trying to make the right moves with getting him help too, because I think everybody can benefit from talking to someone.
Yeah.
And especially children, play therapy and things like that is extremely helpful. And that's one of the things that Road Home program does too, especially for service members in Illinois, is we help with, we'll do children's therapy, family counseling, marriage counseling. We have a chaplain, which is a special forces, an awesome guy named Chaps. And he does a couple of awesome things for vets. He works with moral injury, and then he also has a coffee talk with Chaps. So once a week you can jump on and talk with him and just have an open forum. He's an amazing guy. But we do so many different things at Road Home program, which kind of everyone learns different. Everyone heals different, I feel like. And, they do individual therapy, group therapy. They do mindfulness. Their art therapy is amazing. We're actually going around to colleges and setting up the masks. So they give the veterans a mask, a plaster mask. And on the outside, they say, basically depict how you feel society sees you. And then on the inside, how you see yourself. And if that doesn't choke you up, holy shit. Just looking at the way that these vets can put their thoughts into art is amazing. And then at the end, they let them burn them, break them, throw them away, keep them, donate them, whatever. And a lot of them donate them back to Road Home program. And then they write up a little script on what they were thinking about when they went through it. They even do yoga and art therapy. They do acupuncture, sleep therapy, and then moral injury as well. It's an amazing program. So if there are any veterans, service members, or family members that are listening that could benefit from talking to someone, this is free. You don't need insurance. You don't need a dime in your pocket, and you can get help.
Yeah. And up on the screen, I'm sharing roadhomeprogram.org. Go to roadhomeprogram.org. Who we serve, not just military and veterans, right? I mean, it's family and friends. It's people in the healthcare profession.
Military is such a open, when you say family in the military, that's such a broad term. I mean, you could be my family in the military. I call my friends that served with me my brothers, and I mean it. And but if I'm close with my neighbor and he's my support person and he cares about me and he's worried about me, he can get help. He can get psychotherapy, things like that, to just better understand what the veteran's going through, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it just goes through, there's outpatient, the intensive inpatient program.
No, it's outpatient. It's intensive outpatient program.
So that's the 2-week deal.
Yeah. So they, at the end of the day, they go back to basically an apartment. They have their own kitchen, living room, everything. So that's where a lot of the actual magic happens, is after this long day of just a lot of work. You're putting in the work when you're in this. At the end of the day, these cohorts come together and they build that camaraderie. They stay friends afterward a lot of times, and they can go explore Chicago, go on pizza tours or whatever.
Right.
They have the weekends off. So it's Monday through Friday, like a 9 to 4. It's like a job for those 2 weeks. But at the end of the day, you get to go home. So it's not inpatient. And a lot of vets and service members don't like talking about inpatient or wanting to go to inpatient.
So
totally different animal.
Okay, cool. And but what you do at the Road Home program is take away any excuse for them to say, no, I can't afford it. No, I can't get there. Oh, no, I can't lose work. I've got bills to pay, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean,
we take down as many barriers as we can. So we work with organizations, awesome organizations like Salute Inc. and things like that. Wounded Warrior Project, because we're one of the 4 academic medical centers in the Warrior Care Network for Wounded Warrior Project, and they'll pay for bills, they'll pay for your mortgage while you're getting help. Basically, any issues you have. We've been on the phone with someone that could not afford gas, so we got them a gas card just to drive up here to get help, things like that. So our goal is to help as many service members as possible, and whatever we need to do in order to do that.
Awesome. Good morning, Tim. Glad to have you with us, brother. Hope all is well. Of course, it's not Scott Giles with me this morning. It's Mathius Carter, author of Instead of Sheep, A Soldier's Way of Explaining PTSD to a Son, a Child's book, or a children's book, which is awesome. He wrote it for his 4-year-old son to help understand. Also works at the Road Home program, and that's ROAD. So actually, Road home.
It's a hard road home. That's where it came from. Everyone's just trying to get back to that, whatever that normal was before you went through this.
And that's so America, the world is PTSD from 2020, right?
Pretty much.
And the reason that I say that is you said something. You're like, want to get back to that normal. There's no such thing.
No, that's true.
There's
what is normal,
right? Normal now is abnormal. Everything that we do, everything way that we look at things is never going to be like the good old days of 2010 or 1990 or 1980s. What I mean? And part of dealing with it is understanding I ain't never going to get to normal again. Right.
It's opened our eyes too to mental health in general. Oh my gosh, people, high school kids and things like that. I mean, there's so many people out there that are taking their lives and because they're going through so much and they're isolated and they have nobody, and it's been a tough handful of years for sure.
Yeah. Now, your job at Road Home is what? Are you one of the therapists?
I'm an outreach coordinator. Okay. So what I do is I reach out to organizations all over the country. We split up the whole country between 5 different outreach coordinators, and all of us, there's 2 Marines that I work with. There's myself. There's another Army veteran. Yeah, they're all right. And then there's a Gold Star mother who lost her son in Afghanistan. So we have the whole gamut of we can all kind of relate to different groups. We have a pastor on the other Army veteran is a pastor as well.
Awesome.
We have a lot of different takes on this, and we all work together really, really well. But, my big states are Texas, Wisconsin, I have Massachusetts. I have a whole bunch of different states that are fantastic for veterans and what they do for their veterans and service members. So I reach out to organizations, to the VAs, which we get a lot of referrals from, because the VAs are unfortunately inundated with not enough people to help and too many people to help. So they're about 3 months behind. So getting into our programs a lot faster. If you're trying to do outpatient, they can get you in real quick. So things like that.
So you went into the military at what age?
17. My parents had to sign me in to
17.
Yeah, I did the delayed entry program. I knew I was going to go in the Army when I was 15. So I think by the time I left for the military, I think I helped recruit, at least four people into the military. And out of the people that went, the only person that made it out of basic was my sister. So she was a military police investigator, and
wow,
yeah, she was the first person that I got to, obviously the first female I knew in the military.
Yeah.
And from then on, I had just fantastic female role models in the military, which helped me become a great leader.
Right. Yeah. So literally, while your friends were learning your high school friends and football teammates were learning how to drink and party at college, you are defending freedom, and that's a whole different education than.
Yeah, I turned 20 in Iraq, so it was definitely different.
Yeah.
It's about to be 20 years since we crossed over into Iraq in March, and that's eye-opening because I don't feel that old.
Right.
But I went to war 20 years ago. Definitely don't feel that old, but my body does a little bit, I guess.
Now, as you work at Road Home, how can all these listeners, how can we help you do your job? What is it that people listening can go, oh, let me help Road
Yeah,
Home program.
so I reach out to for-profit and nonprofit organizations. I mean, an example would be, if there's any connections for Stryker or some big
Yeah.
corporations that have, the employee resource groups, and they might have a veteran resource group.
Yeah.
We do those kind of things. We'll do, maybe their monthly meeting where they have everybody and their staff. We can jump on and do a 5 or 10 minute overview of what we do, because even if even if you're not in the military, like you said earlier, somebody that is in the military or that has gone through this, and it could be even like yourself. If your father was in the military and you have some PTSD or some issues because of it, you can get help. So I mean, it's for everybody. But yeah, I mean, working with for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations, basically anybody that hears this that could benefit or thinks that they know somebody that would benefit from hearing what we do. Those are the kind of people that I want to talk to. The medical professionals like your daughter, things like that may run across a veteran.
Yeah.
And then if they do, this would be something that they would, like the VA will send their vets to us, and we put them in a better position to send them right back to them so they can continue with that care. So we don't take anybody away from anybody.
Yeah.
We put them in a better place and then put them back. And the numbers are there. I mean, the service members that go through our program, over 50% of them don't even meet the criteria, the self-diagnostic criteria for having PTSD going forward. And it lasts about a year. It's an amazing program, and that's without follow-up care. But that's another part of my job, is making sure that the service members, when they go through our program, from the time that they come, we welcome them, and then by the time they leave with a packet of resources, so they know. Let's say they enjoy doing yoga and they want to go back. That's funny when I see the Vietnam vets that ask, they're like, hey, can you find me a yoga place when I go back home? Stuff like that. These big brawly guys that you would never think would do yoga.
Listen,
it helps a lot.
I started doing yoga about 3 months ago. I absolutely love it. I mean, it hurts, but it really gets you into a cool space. Up on the screen, I've shared with you the roadhomeprogram.org, roadhomeprogram.org. If you're not sure, or you're a little bit scared to chat with somebody who has been in the military, and they may say, oh, I don't have it, whatever. You may just want to share with them this website, because in a dark hour, or in an hour of silence, or as they're alone, and they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with, they may just go, let me check this out.
I mean, I started working here because I needed help.
Yeah.
So I was actually a patient of Road Home program in the beginning. So what ended up happening, I was working for another nonprofit, and there were some suicides that happened with some veterans that were my age, that had children, and that hit hard. And then a friend that was served in Iraq with me took his own life last year. And that was kind of the straw for me.
Yeah.
And I needed help. I reached out to the VA, and they were 2 months behind on intakes. And I reached out to my friend, now my boss, Ashton Kroner, and told her I need help. And within a day, I already started talking to somebody. So I think everybody knows, when you're in a dark place, sometimes you don't have 2 months to wait to talk to somebody. You need to get that off your chest. Someone needs to listen, So there are a lot of organizations like Vets to Warriors. There's a lot of different organizations out there that people just don't know about. And that's my job, is to make sure that people know about this resource. But there are a lot of organizations that will listen to you.
Yeah.
But the vets don't know about it, and they don't seek it out.
I was sitting with Jamie Maravich yesterday. She's the president of the United Way here in McHenry County. And you can dial 211, right? A non-emergency.
988 as well.
Yeah.
That's for military.
Yeah. So 988 is for, I need somebody now.
Gotcha.
211 will give you a listing of all the organizations around you. I didn't know that either. I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So if they, if you're wondering, you're in that space and you dial 211, it'll say, what do you need, kind of a thing, and it'll point you to.
I think I've heard about that when someone's like homeless, like a veteran's homeless, they'll help them like find SSVF or different organizations that will help with housing, emergency housing.
That's that's not emergency, like you're on the bridge.
For sure. I meant emergency housing, but definitely 988 is there for
which is great. So Operation I guess it's a road home program, not operation. Is what could it be for the kids who've been in a school shooting, or is it strictly for military people?
I don't know. That's something I could definitely find out, but I know that they've expanded. They've helped first responders and things like that. Yeah. So I mean, they do more than just the veterans and service members, but that's basically what we do. I think if they do anything else, it's kind of on the side, a smaller portion of it. Maybe they do want to branch out and do some other things, but I think right now we found something that works. We found something that's been working for 8 years. Other organizations are trying to model themselves after us. Even VAs, I heard the Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, maybe, or Cincinnati, wherever the VA is in Ohio, they even came and tried to model their program after the Road Home program. So you're doing well when huge organizations are trying to be like you. And we're one of 4 academic medical centers throughout the U.S. One's attached to Harvard. One's in Atlanta, one's with UCLA called Operation Mend, and then there's us. And each one of them have a little bit of something special. Like ours, we have 2 different cohorts. We have 2 different directions that the service member can go through. So there's combat, which could even be stateside. You don't have to have seen combat, but there have been some accidents with like helicopters and things stateside, and you could have PTSD from that, or even just you've heard with basic training where they break you down to build you up, that can cause damage inside for life where people are affected. So even being hazed or just basic training in general can cause PTSD, and we'll help with that as well. But then there's also the MST cohort. So military sexual trauma is huge for men and women, and more so in men because of the sheer number of men that are in the military, but they don't come forward. So we're lucky where we're able to share with our stories with these service members, and we do get a lot of military sexual trauma, male and female, that are coming in to get help. Wow. And it's an amazing program, both of them. But we're the only one that does it separate. The other organizations out of the 4 do it together, which I like that it's a little separate. You have that little more of a bonding experience. Because you've been through similar situations.
I find it literally truly amazing, really, really cool that I look at you and again, you're put together well, but you've done a lot of work.
I just had to put a good face on, and that's one of the things I got used to at the bank is I'm glad I'm not in the banking industry anymore, but working in the bank, especially in Winnetka or in any sort of field is similar to yours. You have to have that face on. It doesn't matter if you're in a bad mood, you have to be smiling and things like that. Now that I've worked in nonprofit where I work with veterans, if I'm having a rough day and I'm feeling down mentally or things like that, I don't have to hide it anymore, which is fantastic because that was hard. That was hard.
That's tough for anybody, but let alone, for what you've gone through. Is amazing. Again, we've got Mathius Carter with us, and it's Mathius, the German spelling. That's what I found out today. And he's the author of the book, Instead of Sheep, A Soldier's Way of Explaining PTSD to His Son. Absolutely fantastic book. You can pick it up on Amazon. Great. The illustrations.
Nick Atchison. He's a soldier as well, a father of 5 and a soldier. Great guy. We went to kindergarten together all the way through high school. So I think there are only a couple of our class that went into the military, maybe 2 or 3. But I was lucky enough where he's also a talented artist. I mean, I get nothing but compliments about his art, and everything that was in my head, he was able to put down on paper.
do it pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing job.
Yeah.
I can't wait to work on the next one with him. You know, the next one I want to talk about more things that are affecting me that are, you know, kind of behind the scenes in my head, you know, like traumatic brain injury. So I had 2 traumatic brain injuries in Iraq. So a mortar landed real close to me and threw me into a truck head first and ended up hurting my brain. And so things like that, talking about traumatic brain injury and how it affects your memory and it affects different things like that, talking about you know, survivor's guilt if you lose a friend or brother, sister in arms, moral injury, talking about these bigger items. And I was talking to the clinical staff at Road Home program and said, you know, if I do another book, which I didn't know if I was going to at the time, but I'm like, if I do another book, I would love to have a clinician back me, not to write it with me, because I don't want to get away from 2 soldiers writing this, but just to be an advisor to make sure that what I'm saying is on par with, you know, like medical terms and things like that. But then also just to make sure that I'm doing age appropriate steps.
Yeah, doing
you know,
doing the
like
forward or something.
And
like
so
that,
I was lucky enough where our you know, the clinician in charge of our family programming told me that he's been waiting, or he was wondering why, just like you said, why hasn't something like this already been done?
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm behind you. So he's going to help out with that. That's so awesome. I'm blessed for that. So that's going to give me a little more legitimacy. I mean, I don't really need it. I feel like, you know, we're just telling our own story. We're not making it up. So but just having a clinician backing us and hearing that these clinicians are telling me I did an awesome job, just a dumb soldier, you know, and an awesome job. And they're professors at Rush University Medical Center, and they're clinicians at the Road Home program. I just can't stop smiling when I think about that.
So
stuff.
Let's go back to good old Cary High School. How'd you do in English literature?
I have no idea. Unfortunately, my TBI kind of wiped out a lot of my memories.
So that's why Phil Wallace, who's one of the hosts of Bridging Civil Tension, he's also an author. But he remembers conversations in high school where they're like, yeah, you're not going to make it because you can't write and read. And then he's an author and he's like, really? You know, that's why I say.
Well, I said I was never going to go to college. But then after I got out, I realized that I could do anything after the military. So I started college 2 weeks later. And I think I was trying to allude to it earlier, but I got off because I'm kind of like a squirrel with something shiny. But yeah, when it comes to PTSD, a lot of people say they don't have it. And that was me. I got out of the military. I started college 2 weeks later, and I was having a hard time focusing in some of my classes. And so I did all the right things. I sat in the front of the class. I wrote notes. I was doing everything, but I was still having a hard time focusing. So I thought maybe I had adult ADHD. So I went to the VA and I said, you know, I have a hard time focusing. I think I might have ADHD. And they were like, when you drive at night, do you see halos around the lights? And I was like, what does that have to do with my class? Right. You know, and then they started asking questions. So I met the criteria. They were like, tell me how you sleep at night. And I was like, I sleep like everyone else. I sleep on top of my bed with all my clothes on, with my shoes right next to the bed. And because in my head, that was normal. Right. That's what you did because you had to be ready to get up and go. And so I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was weird to check your door 2 or 3 times, make sure that things were closed over and over again. Just, you know, that was all second nature. That was all normal to me. I didn't think I had PTSD. And they were like, you have PTSD. And that was where my journey started in 2005, trying to like navigate how to live back in normal society. And the stuff that was normal in the military is no longer normal. And just stuff like that was crazy.
When I was younger, hey Scott, good morning. Scott's up in the UP doing some snowmobiling where they have 8 feet of snow up there.
Hey Scott.
So he's enjoying that. There were several times when I was younger where I woke up fully clothed on top of the bed, but I don't know how I got there. I was a little bit drunk, but like, oh, that must have been a good night. A little bit different reason. Which is great. So as you continue to build and work with the Road Home program, I mean, what are you planning on doing the normal dad stuff like coaching Little League? And
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough where our schedules are pretty flexible with how we do our business. You know, how we reach out to organizations, how we do things like that. I work from home 3 days a week, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So definitely making time. Yeah, I'll do everything to make time to be with my son as much as possible. To do everything I can to be involved in everything that he's interested in. I mean, that's my goal. I got out of banking because I realized that even though I made a lot of money
Yeah.
and it was a fantastic. That was fantastic, and I loved working with people and making sure that you helped. And you know, I always learned that it's about how many people you help, not trying to make a sale. And then
Right.
the sales just come. And I was doing really, really well in banking, but then when I got laid off, um, Laura Franz from Veterans Path to Hope
Yeah.
reached out to me, and she was like, "Would you ever consider working with veterans?" And I was like, "To be honest, I would love to." And so I started working there, and I worked with homeless veterans on trying to find them, you know, work and, you know, housing and food and all this stuff. And I saw the need. And once you start helping people for a living and it fills your heart, not your pockets,
Yep.
you realize what's important. And filling your pockets with a lot of money, unfortunately, to me, is not as important as feeling like I'm helping someone and I have like a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'll always be in a helping field, I think, going forward,
Yeah.
just helping vets out.
That's, I mean, and finding that purpose. And, you know, here's for people in their 50s. So I'm in, you know, I'm 53. Veterans, as Scott says, thank you so much for your service. Veterans aren't the old guys walking around with the baseball hats that say USS whatever or Vietnam, right? I mean, you're a kid compared to me, and you're a veteran. I mean, our kids are veterans now.
Yeah.
Right. And that puts an incredible twist on the way that we look at things. Shayna, good morning. Glad to have you with us. Tony, good morning. Better to give than to receive, she says. And Shayna says, great info. Are you able to ID those that are unaware?
Yeah, so we have some brochures. One of them is definitely eye-opening. It basically talks about PTSD and how there's like a mild, moderate, and severe and things like that. And when you read over it, you're like, if I didn't have PTSD and I saw this brochure, I would be like, holy cow, check.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so many of these things affect all of the military people that I know. So I think everybody's got PTSD, and I have some friends that are right now. I'm at the age where I would have been retired if I stayed in the military, and a lot of my friends, they're retiring now, and you know, they're badasses in my eyes.
Sure.
They could do that for 20 plus years, do numerous tours and put their body through all that stuff. And I just see them as like, holy cow. But then they on the side are like, hey man, can you help me? I have PTSD.
You're a badass to them. Right?
And it's like, holy cow. Like, I don't see them because like you said, I look normal to you. You know, they look normal to me. Like, how could you do this for 20 years and it not bother you? But then on the side, they're like, hey, I need some help. Yeah. And so it's eye-opening for sure.
On a personal note, who's your tattoo artist? Those are incredible tattoos.
Oh yeah.
It's really, really good.
Thank you very much. Khalid from Area 51 is amazing. Oh, yeah. So yeah, after my divorce, I decided I wanted to start doing some tattoos. So I have military tattoos at the top that kind of talk about my struggle. I've got a whole bunch of skulls with marionette hands, kind of in control of my demons. Yeah. And then I have bullets going down. And then for my son, I have Woody and Buzz on the inside of my arm. Right. So I've got some hard stuff in there.
We got, what is that? Is that
a clock?
5 after 11?
So this is pretty interesting. So in my eyes, my clock is behind my son's. So my clock's broken. Oh. And his is perfect. And it shows 1:15 is when he was born.
Okay.
So 1:15 and then 2018 is here. Yeah. When he was born. But yeah, my clock's all broken and trying to get it back together.
That's pretty good. I've been admiring it all show.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely
Yeah,
great.
Khaled's awesome. I mean, he's a busy guy. They
Yeah.
do fantastic work there at Area 51.
Oh yeah, no, I've just been checking it out. I'm like, that's really good. And a good tattoo artist knows the story and can put the feeling behind it, just like Nick did with the illustrations. In the book.
I think a lot of people that go through stuff like tattoos, because sometimes when you have emotional or like psychological things you're working on, it's hard to pinpoint where the pain is.
Yeah.
And tattoos, where the pain is because you can feel it. It's right there on my wrist for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That sucks. And it's another form of therapy, to be honest. I mean, in between my regular therapy, tattoo therapy is amazing.
Absolutely. And it brings the invisible scars to the outside.
And my skin was messed up from Iraq, so a lot of us had the same symptoms when we went over to Iraq and things like that. They put us on a registry for a couple of different things for the burn pits, and then when we got over there, our water was contaminated with something, so they put us on another registry. It's just,
That's awesome. Listen, one more time, I'm going to share it out there, but it's the Road Home Program .org, and they do great things. You can check them out. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that for Road Home?
Yeah, my email is Mathius. It's Mathius _L _ Carter CARTER at roadhome.org.
That's it. And go out to Amazon for Instead of Sheep, A Soldier's Way of Explaining PTSD. And just a quick shout out to our friends at the United Way. Tickets are on sale right now for an afternoon of football and fundraising on Sunday, January 29th from 1 to 5. It is the United We Win Ultimate Tailgate event. Appetizers, casino games. It's going to be the championship games at the Vixen here in McHenry.
Awesome
You can purchase tickets at www.uwmchenry, so like United Way, uwmchenry.org. We're going to be there. It's going to be fun, but we invite everybody to stop by because it goes to good causes. And again, go out, reach out to.
So my email actually is Mathius _L _ Carter at rush.edu. I had a brain fart and gave you the wrong
rush.edu because Rush backs
yes, we're part of Rush University Medical Center in Chicago.
That's it. Awesome. For all of us here, 216 and that, we can't thank you enough for getting caught in the net and spending some time with a hero, with a soldier, with a guy who has fought for freedom for us here in America and people all around the world, and has done things in his young life that many of us could only dream about doing and affecting so many lives. And now he's changing the way dads and moms can deal with PTSD and their small children. So awesome. Thanks for being here, brother.
I appreciate it.
All right. You got it.
Thank you very much.
Let's get out of here.